Hey, what is up? This is Christian with Journey with Christian podcast, guys. I just want to share with you a really awesome interview that I've had with my dad. The reason why I wanted to interview him was one, because he's got a lot of knowledge and a lot of wisdom that he could share with a lot of our audience, and so I just want to share that with you guys. But also, I realized very young that we all don't live forever. And I really just wanted to really get to know him a little bit more and to put something out there and say, hey, you know what? I would look back always on this interview and I will always remember him. And hopefully, my kids and my grandkids and my great grandkids will always remember my dad. So I just want to share this with you guys. Hopefully you enjoy it. Thanks. Thank you so much for tuning into the #1 podcast for millennials seeking wisdom. I'm your host, Christian Evans, and today's episode is sponsored by Evans and Family Business, where we help you monetize your social media accounts. Today, guys, I have a special guest for you. I am so excited. Obviously, Father's Day is coming up here right around the corner. So I am proud to introduce to you my father. And he's 35 years in the real estate business, 25 years in the school system, helping younger individuals find their way in life. He's a tech genius. He's a father, grandfather. And just to share a little bit about his character, the last 4 or 5 Christmases, he, instead of giving us presents or gifts or anything, he's actually given us something that was an intangible. He's actually given us little 4 or 5 peaks of wisdom, things that we can take and entwine into our lives, and that is something that many fathers don't do. And I'm just so thrilled and so excited to share with you a little bit of his wisdom today. Dad, how are you doing today?
I am great. I got to go sailing today.
Great. It was a beautiful day. That is awesome on your little dinghy, huh?
Yes, that was my Christian and I got to go sailing today. So that was awesome.
And we had a lot of fun with that. Well, Dad, if you don't mind, tell my audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, um, I got into teaching actually 35 years ago when I was like 28. I always had a desire to learn and to grow. And so I used to interview pastors and teachers and just ask them questions and stuff, and kept journals. But eventually, I think God directed me into teaching. And then I was a principal for a while, and that was extremely rewarding, uh, getting to shape a school in a direction, in a pedagogy and a philosophy of education. Um, and then having 4 kids myself, um, that it just created a whole life of learning and growing, and then I began to ask more questions as to, okay, where am I headed with this? And so now I'm retired, and I have thoroughly enjoyed the trip and continue to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know you've taught us quite a bit just from your teaching background. I know you've able to learn and keep learning and constantly learning, which is awesome to see. And obviously, Dad, my podcast is much about wisdom and just learning about that. And I'm curious, what is your definition, your perspective on wisdom?
Well, to me, wisdom is more important than IQ or passing the SAT, the ACT. All of those are information oriented.
Mm-hmm.
Wisdom is a synthesis of God's principles and knowledge. It is knowing the difference between good, better, best. It's the knowing the obvious difference between evil and satanic scam, or a scam, or whatever you want to call it, and truth. So wisdom is a little more advanced. It's different. It's not just simple good and evil. It's more advanced than that. It's good, better, best. It's what do you really want to accomplish in your with your life, and knowing how to make good decisions to do that. That's the essence of wisdom. Okay, I've got these choices.
Mm-hmm.
What is the wisest choice? What is the best choice?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting in today's culture. There is a misunderstanding with truth. We think something is true and it's not, or we have a misinterpretation of truth. And obviously, we're going to be talking a little bit about further podcasts regarding truth and how to discern what is the truth out there. Um, where What would you suggest is a good value of how to define what truth is, if you will?
Well, you have two sources of truth primarily. If you go back to the beginning, you have two sources of truth. And one is in Genesis 1, where it says, in the beginning, God created. Okay, so that's a presupposition. That's a source of truth. And God, through revelation, gives you truth. Then he also gives you truth through the world around you that you can discover. Not everything is in the Bible. Mm-hmm. There's a lot to be discovered. It's actually infinite. So there's those two sources of truth. But then there's also, alongside truth, there is scam, untruth, whatever you want to call it. And those things seem to be or appear to be true, but they're not. And there's a lot of that in our culture. There's a lot of that in the world constantly. The battle is against, good and evil, truth, and what is not true. I know that sounds too simple for some, but what's the alternative? Yeah. Look at the alternative. The alternative is you read and you start with, in the beginning was matter, and matter evolved. But what does that really get you? You have to ask yourself, what does that really get you? Mm-hmm. Does that get you truth, or does that get you a substitute? See, does it answer the big questions? Does it answer
what is our purpose? What is
yes.
life? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You have to concoct a purpose. For me, purpose is given to me. Mm-hmm. See, by a personal creator, a personal God. And it's like you and I were talking about today out on the boat, mm-hmm. and we talked about ministry. And the greatest fulfillment for a person is to be used by God to minister to people. That's it. That's a relational experience between God using you to relate to somebody else and him. That's what he did with Revelation. That's what, mm-hmm. Paul, Moses, Ham, Daniel, any of the great, Billy Graham currently, you just go on through. There's thousands of them through history. People where God used to minister to somebody. Mm-hmm. That's all relational. So truth is, does your truth work? Does it have power? Yeah. If it has no power, maybe it's not truth. Yeah. If it doesn't work, it's like a medication. Yeah. Okay, so I took my antihistamine today, but it didn't work. Right. I sneezed all day, So that's.
Is it consistent? Is it 1 + 1 = 2, regardless of the time? And, I get you. Definitely.
Well, truths. There's universal truths that are crossover cultures and time and space, and then there's truths that are, for a season or whatever. Truth is complex. Mm-hmm. If it is, and that's why you seek wisdom, because you can easily go the wrong direction. That's why for me, in raising you, Christian, and John, and Jasmine, and Ariel, I wanted you to learn to pursue teachability. See, I can't give you all the answers.
Yeah.
But if I can show you the value of being teachable, mm-hmm. and challenge you to be teachable, then you can pursue the answers. That's behind the Christmas gift is seek and you shall find.
Yeah.
See? But your role is to seek. I've just given you a few things to seek.
Mm-hmm. That's where wisdom comes into play, is that idea that, like you just said, I can't give you, and that's humbling as well, but to acknowledge that that's all wisdom right there that you just said, which is
right.
Which is great.
And see, for me, I'm broken. See, you're broken. I'm broken. Broken in the sense that I think thoughts that I shouldn't think, and mm-hmm. there's sin, and I need a savior.
Yeah.
So it's it's that brokenness that I have to. It's humbling.
Mm-hmm.
So you pursue life as a teachable student, as a seeker.
And constantly seeking. It's a lifelong journey and consistent. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't arrive.
Right.
Some people think you arrive at perfection or some sort of utopia. There's plenty of people who think that we can pursue or find something above, a utopia.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's not possible.
Right.
But we can find humility. You can find wisdom, and you can find God, and you can find who you are and why you were made and where you're going, and you can find those things.
And like you said, it's a constant seek. It's always constantly learning. And just to kind of switch a little different path, because we're going to have you on again and talk a little bit more about spiritual and religious and not only that, but just truth and character and integrity as well, because we got some amazing episodes coming up here for those. And I was just curious because I heard this question the other day, and I never actually asked you, and I thought it'd be kind of good to ask one on our first podcast here. What is one question you would like to be asked but never have been asked, and what is the answer to that question?
Oh boy, that one's thrown me off there, Christian. What's a question that
you would like to be asked? You've never been asked before, but a question that you've always wanted to be asked, or maybe you always wanted to ask someone else, but never had the opportunity.
Probably the biggest. What comes to mind is that very few people say, Dave Evans, what makes you tick?
Mm-hmm.
What makes you different? Why are you at peace in the midst of all this?
Mm-hmm.
Because people think they know the answer.
Yeah.
And so what stops learning is when you think you know the answer to something. That's a scam.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah, right there.
And I try and be where I don't know the answer. So what saddens me is, well, like I the last year I taught history, and the kids came into class, and I said, okay, what's your question? And they all looked at me. I said, guys, if you don't have a question, what's the point of being here? And they soon learned the importance of a question. If you don't ask questions, you're really not. You're not open to learn. You're not engaged.
Yeah.
So the sad part for me is people go through day to day and through all these activities and everything else, but they're not asking why are you different? Why do you pray? See, why do you talk to God? Why?
Yeah.
See. And the answer is my relationship through Jesus Christ to God the Father. Mm-hmm. And so I come to God the Father not by some thing that David Evans has done, or whatever. I come to him broken. See? And so Jesus is my advocate. Mm-hmm. He stands there, and I stand with Jesus, and Jesus says, Dad, you can talk to him. I've got him. See? Mm-hmm. And he covers my sin. See? So that God the Father can talk to me like he talks to Jesus. Mm-hmm. And that's just phenomenal. And that sets you apart. That puts you on a different path. Yeah. But do people ask that? No. Not very often, no.
Because like you said, they think they know what the answer would be already. And so they miss out on that truth. They miss out on that understanding. And I think you're right on that, because questions is what drives us to understand more. And again, that's wisdom behind the question as well. I like that. I like that answer. Thank you so much. Also, I think you'll like this next one. And I hope I can posture this well enough for you. But Imagine all the things that you have done, all your things that you've done, you did, you are doing right now, were deleted from history for whatever reason. And you had a piece of paper, and the next day you were going to be gone. And in that piece of paper, on that piece of paper, you could say basically 3 truths, 3 things that you want people to remember you by, or you want to carry on to the next generation. What would those 3 truths be?
One, there is a God,
Mm-hmm.
and He is present, and He is there, and He created all of this, and it has purpose. So that's number one. Number two, there is a way to know Him, and that's through Jesus and through grace and through His love, and He's our Savior. So there is no other path. So you can pursue them all, but there is no other path. That's the second truth. And the third truth is, to me, is God loves you deeply. See, he sent His Son. He loves you deeply. He wants a relationship with you. And that experience is personal. It's extremely personal. But it's where you seek. It's where you pursue. To me, those 3 truths are the beginning. If you don't have those, nothing else matters.
Mm-hmm.
You've been scammed. If you don't have those 3 truths, that there is a God, He's holy, He's righteous, no matter what culture says or what history looks like or whatever, He is who He is. God makes no argument for Himself. He says, in the beginning, God created. God is God.
Yeah.
See? And then he provided a way to get to know Him, and that's through Jesus. It's not going to be an arrogant way where He puffs you up.
Yeah.
That would be ridiculous. Well, why would God want to puff you all up and make you think if you go up these 1,000 steps on your back or on your knees or on your whatever, that's somehow going to please Him? No. See, so ultimately you're left with Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
By grace, and I come to Him broken. So there is that relationship. There is that potential of enormous relationship. And like you and I today, we talked about ministry, and the greatest relationship is to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and love thy neighbor as thyself. The reason those are the 2 great commandments are because they're relational. Mm-hmm. Everything else falls out of that. Everything.
Well, that's, and I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts on this, because that's why I really wanted to sit down, actually, because I know, just from talking a little bit, I just thought there would be more people out there in the world that could also utilize this wisdom that you've been able to provide for us on this podcast today, because that, and again, also I look back, we're all not going to be here, forever, and I think someday I'm going to look back at this and cherish this moment where I'm able to sit down and talk to my dad and have a good conversation about some good questions, about some truths and wisdom, and hopefully I can learn upon that, as well as I hope my followers as well. So, Dad, I really appreciate you tuning in, and thanks so much for your time. I really do thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate it too, Christian. I always enjoy our conversations. You're a seeker of truth, and you're a seeker of wisdom, and I am proud of you.
I'm learning from you, man. I'm learning from you. Hey, if they want to reach out, and my followers, if you guys want to reach out to my dad, you can easily feel free to reach out to me, evansandfamily777@gmail.com, and I can easily connect you with him. And if you guys have any more questions regarding, seeking truth and seeking understanding through His 3 truths, God and Jesus, and that deeply love for you. If you guys want to reach out to him. Also, you can follow me on Twitter at ChristianDE45. And again, if you find this value, add this, share this along with your social media followers and your family, your friends. And again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, have a good one.